that's what's so crazy about how strong this parent-child bond is that people that maybe you would never give another chance to, a friend or a partner, but if it's your parent doing those same exact things, most adult children will.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty and the agony of this particular relationship. Welcome back to the Field to Flourish podcast. It's Luke and I today, and we are so grateful to have you here joining our chats. We chat a lot like this, even outside of the podcast. And sometimes we'll get into this like hour-long conversation about all of these in and out, like nuanced things. And we're like, wow, we should have been recording. That would have been a great podcast. So, we try to bring that same like natural energy to you here on the podcast of just us sifting through things and trying to understand and bring insight to ourselves, to listeners, and ultimately for the purpose of our own growth, our own healing, our own flourishing. So we are excited to talk about this topic. Today, we're going to go through some of the top reasons why adult children present day reasons why adult children choose to go no contact with their parents. And the specificity of the present day reasons is important because there are a lot of like circumstantial, situational things in the research of why adult children go no contact. And those are things like mental illness, substance abuse, divorce, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, neglect, and those bigger overarching things that often began, decades ago into their early childhood. However, what we see is that the present day reasons for going no contact are what really get a person to choose this big life altering decision and keep them continuing to maintain no contact. And so those are the types of things that we're going to explore today on this podcast episode.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to differentiate. There are stuff maybe in the past, but many times it's the present relational dynamics that push an adult child to go no contact. And the first one that we want to talk about is parents' inability to accept the individuation of the adult child.
And I think that one can often underpin so many of the other ones. So it's like other things come on top of that, maybe an identity or an ideological belief or where they want to live in the world or blah, 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 blah. And underneath it all is the reality that some adults, some parents cannot um, willingly accept the version of their child that is separate from them in their sense of self and identity. Like individuation, as we've talked about before on the podcast, is such an important developmental step for a child. And it begins in early childhood and really blossoms in the teen years into the young adult years. And if that individuation process of I am you, I am me, look, I just made it enmeshed. I am you, I am me, you are you. We are distinct, separate entities with different thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, ideas, desires, goals, and actions. And that needs to be okay. That person needs to be granted, that growing child slash adult, the right and the ability to pull away and separate from their family system and from their parent. And that's the process of individuation. And when a parent has such a hard time believing this, this could be all on a subconscious level, but they do not feel their child has a right to do that. And they actually might perceive the pulling away and creating that distinct self as betrayal and as abandonment, even.
And that's really important because I was as you were talking, my wheels are turning like why do you think this inability to accept the individuation of the adult child? Like what is it
Right.
about the parent that is pushing up against that? Um, and I think that's really important that it's not just a neutral growth. It's
Mm,
it's actually a threat a lot of times to the parents, a relationship, identity, reality. Is it's not just, oh, my child is individuating. It's maybe subconsciously my child becoming different than me is actually attacking who I am.
right.
It's because they're different, they're saying I'm bad. And
Mm,
that's maybe not what it is. Them becoming their own person or not agreeing with me is an attack on saying that I'm a bad person and I can't
right.
be a bad person.
Yeah.
And we talk about this with IFS, that kind of like that part of us, the firefighter that projects on the other person of I can't be bad, so you have to be bad.
Mm,
And it's a way of dealing with shame or rejection,
yeah.
abandonment. That if you're becoming different than me, that means I'm bad
Yeah.
and I can't be bad, so you have to be bad. And that's where it starts becoming that individual attacking of the child, which
Yeah.
causes the rift, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the harmful relationship dynamics that pushes the child away and saying, "Oh, I can't engage with this anymore."
Yeah. Yep. And on top of, as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, right. Also, the system can't be bad. So
Right.
it's like as much as they're protecting, I can't be bad and I'm feeling judged, I'm feeling not good enough, I'm not feeling worthy. It's also the systems that they're under that can't be bad, whether it's a religious system, a social, cultural belief system, their ethnic identity or whatever, or just their family system, their singular family system. So if they're also if the child is deviating from any of those systems as well, the parent has to, even more like you said within parts work of, I have to project out my shame that I'm feeling onto you because I cannot tolerate this system having problems. Like if you're implying that this system might not be all that, our family has built it up to be, what would that mean? And it's really interesting. I heard a video recently. Oh, I can't remember her name right now. She is so brilliant how she conceptualizes things. But basically, she said that the people who need, she's left Mormonism specifically, and she talks a lot about these dynamics. And she said the people who need the religion specifically to be true, the more you need it to be true, the less likely, it's like an inverse relationship, the less likely you will be able to question it.
Mm.
And I just thought, well, doesn't that like summarize that so well? If it
Yeah.
is so necessary for your entire, worldview, um, sense of self in the world, everything is banking on that fill in the blank. We're talking really right now about religion being true, then there's no space. There's no like room to even wrestle with it or
Yeah.
question it or deviate from any of its tenets because you cannot, your psyche will not survive.
And this will, I think, will come back up and some of our other points. My wheels are turning again of why do they need
Right.
that? And it makes sense when we're able to be curious. What is familiar? Our nervous systems want what is familiar. What is familiar is right and safe, is what our bodies automatically make meaning out of. If it's different, it, it's dangerous, it's unknown, it's unpredictable. And then when you have unresolved trauma or work that you haven't done, that is ingrained even more and makes us even more need to find that predictability, that consistency, that reliability, that this is right, this is true.
Yeah. Certainty.
This is, yes, this is the certainty. And I think this will come back up, the importance of doing our own work
Yeah.
and how it all fits into each other of allowing feedback. It goes back into like a closed system a closed system doesn't want to be threatened, doesn't want to be, well, doesn't, can't grow because it needs to have that control and that predictability. And so, whether it's a family system, religious system, political system, if it's closed and we have to be right and we have to have all the answers, then we can't change.
Yeah. Yep.
And that comes back to, and if somebody is changing, why it be such a threat? The second point that we want to just discuss and explore is parents' refusal to stop upholding the rigid roles that the adult child has played in the family system. So whether it's the adult child has played the role of scapegoat or golden child or lost child, whatever the role it is, when a lot of times when there's change, the adult child refuses to play that rigid role. And when a parent refuses to allow that individuation, that space to change that role, there's conflict.
Yeah. We don't know the roles we're casted in, even though we know the role inside and out. We know the expectations of it. We know the borders around the role. We know the do's and don'ts. We know the other roles that we're playing along with. We know it all innately, intuitively. We do it. But to
Not,
bring awareness,
not consciously aware of what that role is.
right, exactly. And so as adults begin to recognize, oh, wow, I really was casted as the scapegoat from earlier on, or I really was the golden child or the lost child. It gives a framework to better understand their stories through once you see the role you were cast in. And these roles are so interesting because anyone can play the role. Like it's not really about the person playing the role, which is the painful thing for adult children to realize as they get older, because they recognize, oh, the utility of myself was only the role I offered. Because once they start stepping out of that role, oftentimes, if the system is really unhealthy, they're no longer valuable or worthy to the family system. It's like your role or the highway, that type of mindset. It's a very strict binary.
Oh,
And that's really a disillusioning, I can say personally, experience because you thought you brought innate value
mm,
and intrinsic worth, your heart, your perceptions, your different temperament and just what you brought to the table, what you brought to the room. You thought that that unique combination was like a valuable thing.
appreciated.
Yeah. And then when you realize, um, no, you were just like cast in it, that role. We just needed the role, really. And we'll value you as long as you play the role. This is the unspoken agreement. Okay, you want value, you want belonging, you want worth, then you need to play your role. Oh, you don't want to play it? Okay, well, we're going to take the value, the belonging, and the worth away. And so the roles are marked by rigidity. The
Yeah,
system is marked by rigidity. And there is not wiggle room except for the fact that these roles can change.
yeah,
So you've got to be in a role and you've got to follow your role, but roles can shift. And so in my specific story, I was the golden child for 3 decades, and my sister was the scapegoat, and we actually ended up switching roles. So as long as they're filled, as long as there's a scapegoat, that's probably the most important one for the system to make sure they always have. But right alongside it is there needs to also be a golden child. And so when I started questioning the system and no longer offering this blind compliance, that was when my scapegoat started to initiate that process of scapegoating me. And I believe looking back that my sister was starting to merge into the golden child role as I was kind of, what would it be called? Merging out of it. And those roles needed to remain filled, but the system, you're kind of dispensable. Anyone can play any of the roles.
and I don't know if this is true. I wonder a lot of times when it goes no contact is when a child gets put into that scapegoat role and the child refuses to agree to that role. Because a scapegoat can still stay within the family system if they play
Right.
the role. But if they refuse to take the shame, the blame, the ownership of the mistakes and the messiness of the family, then there's no place for them to be in that. They're going to still be scapegoated, but they're not going to be accepted into the system because they're not going to stop challenging and questioning and owning the blame.
That's interesting. I'm almost picturing it as this empty seat. If you picture like the family system in a little room and a circle around them, this is the imagery that came into my mind, and each having a little, like a little throne, and
Yeah,
the name above the throne of what it is. So I'm picturing like the scapegoat seat is still there,
right.
but there ain't nobody in it.
Yeah,
And the scapegoat, like you said, they'll still scapegoat you because you're now out of the system. So you are like in the truest sense the scapegoat. However, you're not receiving it. It works much better when the scapegoat is in the circle and in this,
right.
because then there's that back and forth. It balances the system much better. They need that good and
Polarization.
bad polarization, like in real time in the circle. So
Uh,
I think that it is definitely disadvantageous to the system. Well, it depends on what perspective. It's good for the system when the scapegoat leaves because it leaves a chance that maybe the system will change, but that's highly unlikely. But it hurts the homeostasis of the dysfunctional family system because it really does knock off the access. Like, oh,
mm.
who do we dump this on? There's no one here in this chair to take it. What do we do with this?
And I like that picture because there's also always the invitation for the scapegoat to come back and sit in that chair. It's not that
Yes.
they get rid of that chair. It's available. We'll receive you back as long as you take responsibility for our brokenness.
That is such a good point. That chair stays ready for you. And a lot of people, this is really common in no to low contact situations, just like with exes. A lot of people go back many, many times and they try again and they give it all their effort again, usually with very poor results and
Yeah.
needing to go back to the state of the protective state, sadly, of no contact.
And again, I don't know if this is true, but like it's the scapegoat leaving is good and bad. Like,
Right.
do you, because the scapegoat has such a negative connotation to it, do you think the only way for a system to grow or change is if the scapegoat leaves it?
Hmm. Wow. I mean, I've always read that the person who is most likely to get out is to heal, is the scapegoat, which is kind of like, well, duh, obviously, but meaning like because they're in that role, the
They already
family
feel like,
system is so painful to remain in that they're most likely to be forced to heal and change. Um, and they're the ones who have the best outcomes
mm,
life-wise, like
yeah,
of being able to have and maintain healthy relationships, have a
individuated.
growth mindset. Yeah, all of that. But that's such an interesting thought. Is like if the scapegoat never leaves, they just can have their mind-numbing blame shift fest and not ever really think about. I mean, I don't want to blame the scapegoat even more, my God.
No, no.
But it's a compelling thought of like how crucial it is for them to leave, how important it is
Well, I think when my mind doesn't say it blames them, my mind was like, what a hero they can be. They are.
to
Uh,
potentially helping. I mean, everyone's got to make their own choice, right? So
right.
the scapegoat finally realizes they can't help anyone. I mean, specifically the golden child that's been scapegoated, they finally give up the role of I've got to fix everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, in leaving, they make room for it to change.
Yeah. And I guess the golden child can stop. Like for you, you stopped playing the golden child role. You
Yep.
stopped scapegoating the scapegoat. You stopped an agreement and staying towing the line.
Yep.
So, in that sense, there is still also an invitation of hey, there's something out of balance. What are we going to do about this?
That's true. Yeah. I think just what happens immediately when something's out of balance is you're going to get scapegoated.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like those happen like boom, boom, boom.
Hey there, listeners. This is a special shout out because something powerful is coming your way. I'm excited to announce the upcoming release of my memoir, Golden Child: My Descent to Scapegoat and Rise to Freedom. It's a raw, honest journey through family dynamics, identity, and the path to reclaiming your voice. If you've ever felt trapped by roles you didn't choose or fought to break free and heal from something you outgrew, this story is for you. And here's where you come in. I'm inviting you to be part of my exclusive launch team. As an early reader, you'll get a sneak peek before the world does, plus behind the scene updates and a chance to help amplify a message that really matters right now. If this speaks to you, head to our site or email me at lauren@flourishtherapy.co to sign up to be an early reader. My hope for Golden Child is that it grows into more than just a book. I envision it My hope for Golden Child is that it grows into more than just a book. I envision it sparking a movement of cycle breakers to rise, reclaim their truth, and walk boldly towards the pursuit of authenticity and freedom.
So the third point, parents' chronic lack of healthy attunement. And I think this one, again, speaks volumes and maybe is connected to old story, but that continuation and like the chronicness of it.
How do you describe attunement with clients? How do you help them understand this concept?
Yeah. I usually start with like, did you feel like your parents saw you, understood you, wanted to know you? And they're usually like, yeah. And then I ask, "Yeah, how about emotionally? Did they, when you had a hard emotion or a hard day, was there freedom to go to them and say, hey, I'm feeling this?
Mm,
Or this was hard? And a lot of times when it goes that piece, people are like, oh, no, I wasn't allowed to do that.
yeah.
So attunement, I would say, is making space for good and hard emotions,
Mm,
and being able to engage. It's that Adam Young's big six. You're noticing it, then you engage, you respond to it, you move towards it, then you engage. Hey, I'm curious, and then able to regulate your own emotions because it can be dysregulating. You may feel out of your depths. You may be personal. You may feel like a failure. You're regulating that and allowing them to have hard emotions. And another part of attunement is we're not going to do it perfectly. So then saying sorry when you realize, oh, I didn't attune well.
yeah.
You gave that bit and I walked past it, or I ignored it, or I shut it down. And so that's kind of how I would
Mm,
explain it and
yeah.
I and understand it.
And when people can see a more expansive view of it like that, of what does it really look like to meet the needs of your child, I think that's when a lot of us are like, oh, right, okay, they weren't really met that well.
Yeah.
And most importantly for this conversation is they're not being met that well right now.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it gets better in adulthood. For some people, it gets worse. For some people, the needs that they had as a child, their parents weren't threatened by.
Right.
One of the things I say in my book, Golden Child, that's coming out, is like choosing between the Snoopy and the Winnie the Pooh fork as a 3-year-old. That's not a threatening choice that your parent has to give you space for. Now, choosing between what religion you're following or what political ideology you align with most, or your sexual identity, or I mean, there's a list could go on and on and on. Those decisions, attuning to those and supporting your child wholeheartedly with those is much more challenging.
Yeah. And then even looking at details within all of those, like
Right.
maybe you have the same religion, but a different take on certain interpretations of the religion or
Yeah.
expressions, and depending on the rigidity of the system, it's like, no, you have to be just like us.
Yeah.
And so you can't individuate. I'm not going to attune to your hard emotion or your pushback or your challenge. I'm going to shut it down. I'm not going to regulate myself. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed and you're causing it, so you're bad and you need to stop.
Yep.
And so it
Yep.
goes back to that familiarity and predictability. I, I don't know where this is going to take me if I question this,
Yep.
and it's scary. So I'm not going to in- invite or entertain any questions or challenges
Yep.
to my belief system wherever it goes, on whatever level the child brings in.
And on the emotional level that you were talking about a few minutes ago, it's like sometimes in adulthood, adult children realize, oh, I actually want the attunement to look different.
Mm,
So they start asking for that. Like they start realizing a lot of times it also happens when we have our own kids.
yeah,
And we're like, oh my gosh, I would never, like, they're pouring their heart out to me right now, or they're doing something really vulnerable. I would never tease them like maybe my mom or dad did. Or it's when we start really connecting dots to how we were
yeah,
cared for. And it's like, oh shoot, this is still happening. I'm still being responded to this way in adulthood of maybe lack of affirmation, like dismissiveness, manipulation, or not even able to bring something up or take up space because the parent can only take up the emotional bandwidth for their own problems, and you're so parentified that you don't really have space. I really like the graphic. It's the Narcissistic Family System, I believe the book is from, but they're just talking about like there should be a parent at the top of the triangle and the child at the bottom of the triangle, the child's needs. And the child's needs should take up the space.
mm,
But what happens with parentification is the triangle is flipped and the parents' needs take up everything, and the child's needs are so they take up such little landscape. And this parentification doesn't just end when the child is now an adult. It
right,
continues. It may even get worse because now the child has a job and they have resources, they have higher mental faculties, so they could even be demanded of more in adulthood when they
yeah,
still need their parents' support. Actually, they need
right,
it more because they didn't get it. They didn't get a good foundation in their developmental
right,
years,
yeah.
and yet they don't find that attunement there.
All of that is so good, and it's just make my I'm having a lot of wheels spinning today as
You're
you're
spinning
talking.
a lot. You're spinning.
And so, like, that invitation or challenge or request or relational bid that an adult child gives to a parent could be anything from, like, oh my gosh, I just realized, like, I felt really alone as a child. And the
Mhm.
parent be like, I'm not accepting that. And they
Right.
went, like, not saying that, but like, no, I did my best. And it, like, gaslighting them. But again, attunement could be like, oh shoot, I messed up. I can come back and say, you know what, you're right. I saw stuff coming up in me. I felt it. I got defensive. I'm sorry. It's that easy. But
Right.
so
Easy
much,
in quotes.
yeah, simple, not easy, simple. Because it is challenging to admit when we're wrong or have challenges or being aware of all those things. But it could be as simple of, I noticed this. Can you just acknowledge it? And it could be as big as um, sharing abuse. Why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you? That never happened. Or I did my best. Why are you blaming me?
Yeah.
Or all the things that you just said. It's being able to attune and accept the hard emotions that are coming up presently about maybe the past
Hmm.
or coming up presently about the present
Yeah.
that maybe are still happening or new things that are happening.
Yeah.
Like as you have kids, like, hey, can you not tell me how to parent? Can you not criticize how I'm parenting? Because there might be feedback or conversations that could be healthy, but if it's like you're doing this wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, you're spoiling them or stuff like that, and you just say, hey, that's hurtful. Can you stop? And like, what? You know better than me? What? I'm the one with all the parenting experience. Like, okay, that's not regulating your own emotions. You're taking it
Right.
personally. You're not, like you said, that pyramid is being flipped. Now I'm bringing you a pain, my parent a pain, and they're saying, now I'm hurting. Your pain doesn't matter. You need to take care of me.
Mm. So common.
It's so common, yeah. And harmful and painful, but also if that's happening, if you're having a tough time as an adult child figuring out like why am I feeling this way, like or having such a response, you might be curious about what was your childhood like. Was this the same way back then?
Right. And that's a way that we get people to really, like, if you don't remember, if you don't know, look at the present. The present will tell you a hell of a lot about the past because these are usually pretty ingrained things. Like if your
Yeah,
parent is dismissive or manipulative now, you can probably bet they were as you were growing up. So
yeah.
that can be so helpful for people too. It's really, really hard to relook at the narrative of our childhood. It is
Hmm.
a monumental task, and it's the defense, the psychological defense mechanisms that keep us from doing it are freaking strong as heck.
Yeah.
So really looking mindfully at how your parents are engaging with you now, how they're doing the big six now will tell you so much, most likely, about the past.
Sometimes it's not so dysfunctional of like parentification, like take care of me, but it's like a glass child. And but when I, it's not always like this feedback isn't always the parent is that bad person was intentionally harming, is dysfunctional and manipulative and personality disorder. It's sometimes it's just the situation, but it caused harm. And when a child is like, I know you had a lot going on, you did your best, but this was hurtful. And when a parent can just receive that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like I did give a lot more attention to your sibling because they needed the help. So that when they can attune to that, it's a kind of a different cause of the pain, but it's just as painful.
Right,
But when they say, well, your sibling just needed it, I'm sorry. It's like, no, that's not attuning.
right.
They're not saying you're bad because you had a tumor. They're saying, hey, this affected me. Can you acknowledge that? This was
Yeah,
hurtful. I think a lot of parents feel like if a child is bringing hard emotions to them, they automatically make meaning of that means I was a bad parent if I acknowledge their pain. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, in some cases, maybe it was, but in other cases, it's like, no, you are not a perfect parent and you caused harm. Can you acknowledge that?
yeah,
Can you repair? And that's all. When we were talking about attunement, it's all we're looking for is repair, not nailing you on a cross or sentence you to life as a
yeah,
terrible parent. We're just saying,
yeah,
own it. You are the parent. You are the adult. Just like we've had to do that, and as parents and with our kids, we have not done things perfectly. And as they're growing and giving us feedback, we're just like, yeah, we dropped the ball. Yep, we made that mistake. That was not our intention. We did the best we could, but we failed you,
yeah.
and that's not always easy. But we were the adults, and we were responsible for taking care of them and loving them.
And the cool part about repair is a lot of these adult children, whether they had parents who just messed up, pretty dysfunctional parents, pretty abusive, pretty straight up personality disordered or toxic. That was a fake continuum I just made up, but depending on wherever they fall, a lot of children, adult children, are really open to genuine repair. There
Yeah,
are some that we talk to or that you can see online or that I read about where they're just like, no, no matter what happens, I am done.
yeah.
I lived that many years in pain and abuse and suffering, and I don't want it. And I don't care if they're genuine. I don't
Hmm.
want to ever repair. And that
Yep.
is 1,000%
Their
reasonable,
choice.
their choice. It doesn't
Yep.
matter if we think it's reasonable or not. It is their
Right.
choice.
Yep.
But what is far more, I would say that's on the bell curve, like the other end. I would say that the 80% of the core would be the adult children that are like, from any of those parents, from the basic of just you messed up because you didn't know what you didn't know to all the way abusive. Most of these adult children are willing to give it other chances, to give it a
Yeah.
go, to really try to do genuine reconciliation. If their parents come in with a posture of repair and healing.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy about how strong this parent-child bond is that people that maybe you would never give another chance to, a friend or a partner, but if it's your parent doing those same exact things, most adult children will.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty and the agony of this particular relationship.
Absolutely. And my experience is the child isn't expecting perfection from the parents.
Yeah.
They're not expecting them to do it perfectly. They're just inviting them, can we do things differently? Are you open to seeing things differently, accepting different things? I've seen people like navigate that and work through that, and it takes time and it's not fluid, but they can get better. Um,
It's
and
amazing.
sometimes there's a limit to how close they get, and but there's also the other side of like, I tried, I invited, and you're not open to it, so I'm done.
Yep.
And no, and I truly believe no child is going to choose alienation from the parents out of convenience or proving a point. It's really their last option.
Yep. It's protection.
Now, the fourth point of this of our seven is the parents' chronic use of manipulation, gaslighting, denying their child's reality, triangulation, blame shifting, projecting their shame, their pain onto the child, those types of dysfunctional relational dynamics. So the chronic use of those is another dynamic in a child choosing and deciding enough's enough and I need to go no contact.
Yeah. Which we've kind of already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. It's just, it's really important when you're trying to understand abuse dynamics, which applies across the spectrum, is this a one-off incident that happens once in a while when they're super dysregulated, or is it a pattern? And patterns are what tell you the nature of a relationship. So pattern doesn't mean is it happening every week? It just means when the rubber hits the road and I need my parent to show up for me, are they? Or when conflict happens and I need my parent to make space for my will and autonomy and agency, do they? Those types of things. And if there's a pattern that they're not able to do those consistently, again, not all the time, sometimes they might, which brings a lot of confusion for us adult children when there's intermittent reinforcement of secure attachment. But noticing the pattern and those behaviors are antisocial, not in the sense of the diagnosis, but they're not pro-social behaviors. They're not conducive to
Connection.
connection, repair, safety. Those are all very strong cues of threat to the
Yeah.
nervous system, regardless of who you are. And so if those are happening as a pattern in a relationship, it will make an environment where you cannot be emotionally close to your parent who is doing
Yeah.
these things.
Our nervous system states are either for connection or protection. And if our nervous system is getting that cues of threat, it would be maladaptive for us to say, to convince our body to be safe and to continue to engage in that relationship when it isn't a pro connection, cues of safety that are being sent from that other person. So the fifth one is the parent having a defensive posture when you bring a bid or um, invitation versus having that receptive posture and willing to listen and repair the relationship and attune to the concerns.
Yeah. And that posture really does make a huge difference because even if it's really clumsy, the repair, a child can sense if their parent is open to them. It's almost like you know how we talk about neuroception and being able to feel things in people. This is also how people talk about energy, and people kind of poo-poo it like, oh, we don't have energy. No, we do. We radiate different felt senses that other people can then pick up on with our mirror neurons. So we match what we're seeing in the sense of, okay, you're giving me cues of protection. you have this defensive, firm, rigid, disdainful posture, guess what? I'm not going to keep being vulnerable, open, and receptive. That's a very dangerous position to put myself in. So if they come with the defensive posture, it really gives you only the opportunity to retreat into self-protection, because with a defensive posture, you cannot, what's the word I'm picturing? Like merge in a healthy, reparative, healing
Yeah.
way. You can't bridge that gap that the conflict has brought. It's not possible.
And that's where we kind of say, believe who they're showing you to be.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
if that defensive posture is there, be aware you're probably going to want to fawn. You're going to try to soften things. You're going to over attune, over function. You're going to be parentified. But none of that is going to change the dynamics.
yeah.
It's just fawning and taking responsibilities not yours and saving them from the hard emotions that they're feeling. So if they're having that defensive posture and being difficult, believe the person that they're showing you to be.
Okay, so here's a question for you. What does it do to a person who feels the defensive, rigid posture, but is hearing words that are different? So they're hearing these nicey nice words of, I want to fix things with you, I love you, blah, 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 blah. And yet their body is neurocepting a lack of safety. What does that do to someone's mind and body? Like, how does that impact them?
I mean, it's very confusing, um, gaslighting. And I think what I would suggest if a person is feeling that is that's tricky because sometimes if there is a history of not having connection, not lack of safety, but maybe a lack of attunement, your body might feel that defensiveness. It may or may not be there. And so I don't want to get too muddy the waters too much, but I want to also validate the reality that there are situations before there's safety, there isn't complete felt safety, and that's normal. If we can share that with our parent of like, hey, I don't feel like you're defensive or whatever, and like, oh, I'm sorry. Again, they're showing you. But if you do share that and like, well, that's not my problem, then it's like, okay, they're showing you. We need to trust what we're feeling. Because in both of those situations, it doesn't matter if the person's trying to be safe or not. If you're feeling that, you're getting that from somewhere. And sometime, like I was doing a training with a trauma geek, and was talking about how she doesn't like faulty neuroception, because the idea of faulty neuroception is like a person's safe, but you don't feel safe with them. And it's like, no, that's not faulty. That you're not feeling safe for a reason. It might
Right.
be that situation or that person. But either way, the invitation is to trust. Just because things aren't matching up, still trust that.
Mm.
Because even the fact that it's not matching up is giving you information.
Yeah.
If the words don't match the body language, there's something you're picking up on something. It might be them not being defensive or abusive, but maybe it's they're not feeling safe. And but you're still feeling something and you need to
Be able to name it.
be able to name it, and it needs to be valid and acceptable for you to also be on the process of like, I'm not going to just flip a switch and feel safe with you.
Yeah.
This is a process. And if your parent can receive that, like, okay, that makes sense. I will work on creating safety for you. How do I create safety for you? I'll give you time to feel safe. Like that's that attunement. Okay, you're having hard emotions. Okay, that makes me have hard emotions, but I'm gonna regulate myself. And I'm gonna make space for you to be on your pace and your journey to feel safe when you feel safe, rather than you need to feel safe because I want you to.
I'm thinking of an example in your life with your parents of when they had every reason to feel protective and defensive, and yet they saw your pain. and they were willing to attune. Do you want to share that briefly?
Yeah, I mean, it was a confrontation that I was, we set up a conversation to, because I needed to confront them about something. And I was feeling all kinds of ways and parts, and they showed up what I felt like was late. There was a misunderstanding. And so I had all kinds of parts, not feeling safe, feeling they didn't care, um, firefighters, protectors. And as that stuff came out, my parents also had protectors coming out. And I kind of very messily, just like, I think my dad says something about like, fine, if it's going to be like this, I'm just going to leave. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. I want you to leave. No, I don't. I'm scared. I'm hurting. I'm terrified, and, and I'm hurt. And he could have said, like, screw you. You're. This isn't how I want to have the conversation. I'm done. He said, oh, I see that. Okay, I'm sorry. Can we try this again?
Mhm.
And it was
Mm.
like he had the defensive posture. I had a defensive posture. There was lots of things going on, but in my messy, chaotic way of trauma response, I like, no, I want to have this conversation. I'm terrified. And he went from that defensive posture and he attuned and it's like, oh, and he made space for me to not be perfect. And that conversation wasn't perfect on
Yeah.
either side, but it was productive.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that shift, that postural shift that he was somehow able to make. I mean, it must have been hard to do, but he
yeah,
really saw you.
yeah,
And they were able to change the course of the entire conversation because they got
tuned.
into a posture of repair. And it
Yep,
made all the difference in the world.
yep. Yeah, they were able to attune, engage, and respond by shifting their posture into a posture of repair. And it changed the trajectory of that conversation, but also our relationship.
Very, very different scenario than a lot of folks listening or than myself have had. And so we just want to give an example of like how it can not be this perfect, beautiful thing, but
Yeah,
be a real, authentic, pro connection experience to have these hard
mhm,
conversations with parents. And when it's not, it gives us very little options when our parents show that they are unable or unwilling to have a posture of repair and healing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The sixth point that we would like to discuss is the parent's chronic lack of interest in the adult child's genuine well-being.
I think this could look so different depending on the relationship and the context. But if your parent does not recognize the impact of how they engage with you and how it affects your well-being, um, where they support you, where they don't, their lack of encouragement, their lack of affirmation, their constant undermining you or dismissing you, all of it. If they do not recognize the profound impact that has on us as adult children, um, it's going to really deteriorate the relationship. And we're out here as adult children, trying to slay dragons and figure out ourselves and figure out our life and create families. The generations are moving forward. We're here trying to find ourselves and do our thing. And we need the cheerleaders behind us, or you could say ahead of us, um, kind of making space for us to find our way. And when we don't have parents that can appreciate what they bring to the table, whether it be really just the impact of what they bring. Like if it's
Mhm.
really good, it's really good. And adult children experience so much benefit from that deep, close, supportive connection. But
Yeah,
when it's not there, or when it's half-assed, we'll say, it's a really massive mental, spiritual, physical load on the adult child. And
yeah,
so when there's that lack of concern about your overall well-being and really just focused on their their things they want to stick on with you, that where they want to nag, where they want to change you. If those are their main purposes in engaging with you versus just, I want you to thrive. I want you
Mhm.
to be your best self, whatever that is. And I want to just be here for it, cheering you along. That's going to be a contributor to why some children choose to go no contact.
Genuine well-being, having that interest is making space for a person to be genuinely themselves. And so, like, it's not just, "Oh, I want you to be successful," but it's like, I want
Right.
you to be authentic and integrated. I don't have to think the same way you do. I don't have to see the world the same way you do. I can trust that what you're passionate about, what you think, how you see things, that is genuine to you. And we're obviously talking about things that are like pro-social and moral and ethical. Um,
Not you like wanting to be a serial killer or something.
right.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
obvious, but it's worth
I
saying.
I hope so. Um, I think so too. But like not making that helping letting people individuate to be genuine, be authentic, be integrated, and the lack of interest there would look like, no, you need to look like me.
Yeah,
Like,
it goes back to that first one.
yep. Lack of interest doesn't necessarily be like mocking or stupid or intentionally pushing against, but not supporting or encouraging or cheerleading their children along their journeys.
Yeah. Which reminds me of the next one and why, say the next one, and then I'll refer back to this one real quick.
Yeah, the last one is refusal to get help, become a healthier person, and in turn, a safer parent.
So, as you're just describing, like them really seeing your authentic self and embracing it and like honoring it, and how can they do that if they can't even do that for themselves? You know,
Yeah,
so much of these reasons that we've listed are based on number seven, the reality that they haven't gone to those places and done that deep work. And so they are parenting you and engaging with you out of a place of unhealed attachment wounds, of complete lack of their own conditioning, their own roles that they play, um,
insecurities.
their insecurities, their adaptive responses or maladaptive responses, the different protectors that lead their system that, force, like push them to do things. They just don't know any of that. And so they are fully at the mercy of their subconscious. Like the people who don't bring the subconscious to consciousness are the most at the mercy of their
Yeah.
subconscious. It runs their whole life. C.G. Jung says, you'll call it fate. Like I can't remember the first part of the quote, but
Um,
like your subconscious basically runs the whole show, and you just call it fate. No, it's your own story. It's your own history jammed into your inner system that you've done nothing with except maladaptively cope through religion, through addictions, through politics, through all the conditioned roles that you've made. So, how are you going to possibly embrace and support your full thriving child, where they're trying to get to, if you can't even go there for yourself?
yep, absolutely. And I think this is where you see adult children outgrowing the emotional maturity of their parents. And it's like losing, like not having those old touch points or those similarities.
Mm,
And if one person is growing in one direction, that it's taking you away from. And if that person isn't willing to adapt or adjust,
and grow
um,
too.
and grow alongside or in different ways, because you can still grow in the same direction and not agree with everything.
Right.
And so it's not that we're saying if your child is growing this way, you have to align with them. That's not individuation either. you may, as you both grow, start aligning in similar ways, but that's not necessarily what needs to happen. It's understanding your inner world, becoming consciously aware of why you're doing things, and making space for the child to be different. And a lot of times, the child is doing that emotional work, which is bringing up the stuff, which is pushing them to confront this dysfunction. And the parent is not willing to meet them where they are at or where they're inviting them to, and so they're outgrowing them, and so there's no relationship has outlasted its usefulness or its necessity,
Yeah.
um, or health.
Which is so incredibly tragic
It
because what
is.
should be this like life flow of goodness and connection like no other becomes this dried up well of um, cracked soil. I'm picturing super
Mm,
dry and super,
not, not nutrient, not
yeah, no life,
flourishing.
nothing life-giving left. And
Yeah.
so in these are seven, some of the big ones of the present day reasons why a lot of adult children go low to no contact with their parents. And it is, like Luke said, not a rash decision for the vast majority of us. And it is one of the hardest decisions to ever make because it goes against every single uh, neurobiological need for a child and social need. It is not natural and it's not wanted. And yet,
It's necessary
as we
sometimes.
see in these seven reasons, some of us have all of them, some of us have a few, or some of us have others. It is what a lot of us have to decide, and that is completely our choice to decide that. If a relationship no longer offers really much goodness to us, and all it's bringing is pain and terror and confusion and gaslighting and suffering, then it's our decision to decide to go low contact or to go no contact and be fully estranged. And that's what we hope this episode has helped communicate the reasons why a lot of us get to that point, get to
Yeah.
that.
And I think another oversight a lot of people have is when a child chooses that, they're not saying this has to be it for the rest of my life. Like when they go to low or no and communicate that, that's a time where the parent realizes, oh, okay, I need to change something. And if they do the work and they change, great. But so many parents say, just blame the child again. Is like, see, this is why they're, they're the problem. Um, they're being too this, too that. And it's like, well, you're just reaffirming why I have to go no contact.
Yeah,
And going back to that scapegoat, they'll scapegoat you, but they're just believe who they are showing you to be. You've given them the feedback, what you need, what you're expecting. And if their response is blame, then it's like, okay, I'm making the right choice. If they ever
yeah,
change, great. But so my parents, when they don't change, and that's why they have to go no contact and don't humble themselves and do the change and the work that they need to do to rebuild trust and safety and pursue that relationship again the way that it needs to be, which is hard, but it's also validating, reaffirming to the child that has to go no contact.
it certainly is. It certainly is. We just want to invite you to check out my upcoming book that's going to be published September 2025. And here I have the quick summary. Golden Child, My Descent to Scapegoat and Rise to Freedom is a self-help memoir that details the collapse of illusory goodness within a family system through the disruption of Christian nationalism, ultimately leading the token golden child, me, to walk out of her gilded golden cage. Through an arduous journey with grief and wonder, she courageously unravels from fundamentalism and steps into her authentic and free self. Please check out my book page, which is on flourishtherapy.co. You can find all the details about the book and how to pre-order it soon, and also be notified when it is available to purchase. So we're really excited about that project that I've been working on for 3 years, and we will have a podcast soon coming out about the story. So look forward to that, and we'll see you next time on the Field to Flourish podcast.